A soul contract is a collective belief system that before we incarnate, before our soul manifests into a physical body, we have other souls up in the non-physical that raise their hand to play a part for us to have a soul growth experience. And so soul contracts does not mean it's all love and light. Soul contracts could be one soul, when they're making their plan for their life in that manifestation, is like, I want to overcome rejection in my life. And I want to learn how to forgive somebody who rejects me to my core and, takes away all my power, whatever. A soul is like, hey, I will play that role for you. Like, I'll go and do the things to you so that you can have the choice to either be victimized or to grow. I'll be that player in that life lesson. So then we incarnate, and then eventually it happens where you interact with that person, they take away your power, they do something to victimize you, to make you feel rejection. And then you have the choice. Am I going to continue to spiral down the hole that I will always be rejected, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, and then do all the things to make yourself feel better and make yourself feel worthy and do all the things with your ego to make yourself feel more confident? Or are you going to have a moment where you're like, oh shit, what did I learn from that experience? What in me did I need to learn? And then when we make that choice to say, what in me did I need to learn? What in me needed to be healed? When we make that choice, then that's the opportunity for the soul to grow.
Welcome to Queen Bold EQ podcast, where I share with you the mindset, energetics, emotional intelligence, and habits required to transform your health and manifest your dream body. I'm your host, Lauren Saracione, a 20-plus year fitness professional, lifelong entrepreneur, and I have self-healed my chronic pain and my emotional eating. And I am here to share with you the spiritual and the practical so you can transform your health and manifest your dream body.
Welcome to the 8th episode of Queen Bold EQ. This is all about raising your emotional intelligence so that you can really sense the energy of sabotage before it takes you out. And if you do get into the energy of sabotage, you understand how to work with it so it doesn't get worse and worse and worse. Because the fundamentals, the hard skills of getting your dream body is diet, exercise, and your hydration. That's it. Diet, exercise, your hydration. And within exercise, we have to have rest. So that's like a balance of tension and relaxation of what we're putting our body through, healthy stress, and then also allowing it to heal itself. Those are the hard skills required to get to your dream body and transform your health. The soft skills are having self-respect, having self-love, having self-loyalty. We have to learn how to interpret the feelings that we're having and where they're coming from so that we can stay loyal to ourselves and our commitments. And this bold energetics or bold EQ is really about stepping up to the plate. And can you remain loyal to yourself? And can you respect yourself instead of doing the stupid shit that we do when we feel bad? Like when we numb out on the couch and we're overeating, or we need to have that drink, or we have to go run our ass off on the treadmill because we feel bad for something that we ate. All of those habits are a form of self-punishment, and they are re-inflicting the cycle of abuse if we have had any type of abuse in our life. And so whether you've had mental, emotional, physical, sexual, or spiritual abuse, whatever the case may be, wherever you had your power taken away, where you were made to believe that you were not powerful, those mental, emotional states, those identities that we have impact how we are taking care of our body. And so this can show up in other ways too. It can show up in sex addictions, work addictions, money addictions, shopping addictions, whatever. The point of focus of where we put our mirrored universe is where we inflict this cycle of abuse until we understand that it is a cycle of abuse so that we can stop it. So I'm really excited to share all this with you. I have been a fitness trainer for over 20 years, and I have been on this like self-healing journey since 2010 when I stopped binge eating. And the things that I've learned on that path have taken me from like hardcore mindset practices to strength training to to like hardcore implementation in quote unquote the real world in the 3D and the objective reality that we create with our subjective mind. And then also down many, many, many spiritual wormholes. And so I'm going to be talking with you about one of those spiritual wormholes, about soul contracts. And the point for this conversation is actually to learn how to forgive the people who have harmed us or the people who we don't have good interactions with, and forgive ourselves. Because it's this energy, it's this emotional system that's actually impacting our ability to take care of ourselves and then how our body is manifesting. So if you want to have like more sciencey type stuff about the manifestation of our body, go back to the first couple of episodes. It's called Identity and Manifestation. And you can go back to the first and second episode where I cite more of the scientific stuff with Dr. John Sarno and how the body manifests itself in dis-ease when we have these low grade fight, flight, fawn, freeze, mental, emotional identities. So go back to that for more of the sciencey stuff. We're going to jump right into the soul contract conversation. And I have a notification, but let me see if I can see. Oh, thank you, Mickey. Okay, so someone loved the video on Facebook. I wanted to make sure that I could see a comment. Okay, so just to remind you, I do these podcast episodes live streaming onto my Facebook page. It's facebook.com/Lauren Saracione Body Energetics. And so Mondays at 10 a.m. Pacific time and Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Pacific time, I am live streaming these podcast episodes onto my page. And then I share them into my paid group, the Queen's Gambit, which is a 12-month coaching community where you're really going to transform your body. And then also in my free group of Body Energetics, where I host my free master classes each month. We have one coming up in January. I'm really excited to share it with you later. So if you want to have hot seat coaching, you are going to want to go to my Facebook page on Mondays and Tuesdays, because then you can ask any questions that you want. And if you can't make it live, you can always go to my stories at It's Lauren Saracione, where I post stickers the day of the podcast episode. So if you can't make it live and you have a question, drop it in there, and then I'll be sure to cover it on the Facebook recording. Okay, so the soul contract is a belief system. I'm just go over it like really quickly if you're unfamiliar with it. A soul contract is a collective belief system that before we incarnate, before our soul manifests into a physical body, we have other souls up in the non-physical that raise their hand to play a part for us to have a soul growth experience. And so soul contracts does not mean it's all love and light. Soul contracts could be one soul when they're making their plan for their life in that manifestation is like, I want to overcome rejection in my life. And I want to learn how to forgive somebody who rejects me to my core and, takes away all my power, whatever. A soul is like, hey, I will play that role for you. Like, I'll go and do the things to you so that you can have the choice to either be victimized or to grow. I'll be that player in that life lesson. So then we incarnate, and then eventually it happens where you interact with that person, they take away your power, they do something to victimize you, to make you feel rejection. And then you have the choice. Am I going to continue to spiral down the hole that I will always be rejected, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, and then do all the things to make yourself feel better and make yourself feel worthy and do all the things with your ego to make yourself feel more confident? Or are you going to have a moment where you're like, oh shit, what did I learn from that experience? What in me did I need to learn? And then when we make that choice to say, what in me did I need to learn? What in me needed to be healed? when we make that choice, then that's the opportunity for the soul to grow. So that's kind of the very distilled version of what a soul contract is. And so when I was doing really deep inner work in meditation, I was basically it was like a Kundalini awakening, is I think that like the best way to describe it, where the visuals that I would see in meditation was like what the chakra system looked like and what emotions looked like and how on the non-physical side things came into being. And so what I've done with body energetics and like with my background here, this is kind of like the vibe of what my inner vision looks like. My inner vision has a lot of neon colors and lines that intersect. And when a line would intersect, then all of a sudden it would create this picture that I would see playing the screen of my mind that would tell me a story of how mindset, which is frequency, and vibration, which is the emotion, collect together and then create a manifested form. So in my inner work, it was like, okay, if I have energy and I have these mental, emotional states in my body that are keeping me unhealthy and keeping me living in a state that I do not like, the things that were going on in my life and in my body that I didn't like, if I understand that these are all manifested by me, by my mindset and by my emotions, what are they and how can I clear them? So in those meditations, then these ideas would come to me. And this is all stuff that's stored in your subconscious mind, because your subconscious mind carries all the information of everything about you on the soul level and the human level. So as soon as you take your focus with your conscious mind, your 3 to 5%, and you actually decide to dive into that subconscious mind, the stuff will be revealed to you. It's all there for everybody. And so I feel like these spiritual ways of thinking about them are all like collective books of how people relate to what is stored there so that we can actually work with the mental, emotional states instead of being overrun by them. So when I was in this meditative, state, what happened was I had the image of my ex-husband and my rebound relationship that I had after I was married. And it was like I saw them talking to me as just their souls. And it was really fun. And I was crying because I felt so much gratitude for the lessons that I learned through those experiences. And the human pain came off of the interaction and the soul gratitude came in, where I was like, oh my God, is that what it was for? And this may not be something that you relate to. And so, you're welcome to leave this podcast episode if it's not something that you relate to. But the whole purpose was to forgive. Because as soon as we can release the pain and the fear that we have in our human experience, the more we can calibrate our body and our energy to what we do want. So this is how I was able to forgive and then make the steps to move forward. And so this forgiveness does not mean that you have to interact with the person again, that you have to reconnect with the person. It does not mean any of that. You still get to hold your human boundaries, but on the energetic level, you're constantly relinquishing these cords that you may have tied to them. And the one of the ways that this continues to release and transform is through your dreams, through the subconscious mind, making connections and venting and allowing you to make sense. So the dream state plays a big role in this releasing of having your energy recalibrate so that you, when you're awake, in your conscious choices, you have a better awareness of what's going on energetically in your field so that you can really sense what's going to trigger you. Because the reasons why we're not able to follow through with our health and fitness goals, or we sabotage them, is not because of body shaming, is not because of diet culture. That's where we put our focus. The reason why we're not following through and we're sabotaging is because we have these old energies in our body that are from pain and fear experiences. And so when we when our body wants to get back to who the mind previously thought it was, the previous manifestation of our body before we got the result or before we made the decision to make changes, that old energy flares basically and becomes active to make sure the current you or the old you stays the same, because that's its job, to hold the identity of who the mind thinks it is. So this is one of the ways that I have cleared my energy to be able to follow through with the most boring diet in the world. I eat an anti-inflammatory diet. My taste buds love ground turkey and brown rice. I feel like I live in the Matrix. I feel like I eat slop. Most of my food is brown. And it is what it is. And it's, it is what it is. Okay, so I have 4 points to share with you. So what I believe soul contracts are as a conditioned belief system. I think I kind of covered that in my introduction. So soul as a conditioned conscious belief system, conditioned consciousness belief system. Let's talk about that for a second. All we are is consciousness. We are connected to source energy as the main conscious source, right? And before we have a physical body, we are unconditioned. We are the formless. There is no form. There is no subjective feeling state. There is no objective feeling state, because as we are formless and when we don't have the body, we are unconditioned, just source energy, formless, waiting to be plugged into something to have the objective experience. So what this objective and subjective reality is that the subjective is how we feel. And that's our own piece of conditioned consciousness. How we feel is the conditioned state that we are then conditioning our body into being. The objective reality is what that subjective mind, the subconscious's job, that manifests and projects and creates the reality of the conditioned consciousness. So whoever it is that our consciousness thinks it is, if we have a victim state, if we have a poverty state, if we have an unhealthy state of mind, that state of mind, our conscious reality of how we hear ourselves speak and feel about the world, impresses on the subconscious, whose job is to spit out the thoughts of the conscious mind, the conscious conditioned mind. So if that's what it is, as the nuts and bolts of what consciousness is and what our reality is, the soul contract is a collective conditioned belief. If we resonate with the idea of soul contracts, we're going to believe that the things that happen to us and the interactions that we have with people are contracted and maybe out of our control. So we might have still a little bit of victim mindset with it, or just this experience. This is how it works. We have a soul contract. This was always supposed to happen. This is destined to happen. Now, what do I do with it? So it's a belief system. It's something that collectively people believe in. So if you look at, Dolores Cannon's work, where she takes people into hypnosis with past life regressions, a lot of them say the same thing. That's a collective of people believing the same thing. That's a section of conditioned consciousness believing the same thing. So for me, that's all this stuff is. And that really feels to me like we can release the attachment of needing to be right and release the attachment that we need other people to believe the same way as us when we start to say, we are all consciousness, we are all conditioned, we all have a subjective reality of feeling in our subconscious, we all have an objective projection of that subjective reality, and here we are. So for me, that's what the soul contract is. Now, number 2, the puzzle piece contract is something that came to me in that healing moment where I saw my ex-husband and I saw my rebound relationship. And the puzzle piece contract was triggering each other with a perfect fit of wounds and bandages. Okay, I got to check my notifications here because I can't see comments. Okay, awesome. Okay. So, um, the puzzle piece contract was with the rebound relationship. Okay. And so what I found there was this really silly moment. So this rebound relationship, he was hilarious. Like I still have, excuse me, a note section on my phone of all of the funny things that he would say. Like I laughed so hard. I can't even tell you how hard I laughed with this guy. Like it was just the best. It was so much fun. And he had a pretty big temper. And so what I reflected on was that who I was when I was unconscious, or who I was like unconscious as in just operating without thinking, without being aware of my emotions, without being aware of the energy in my body, just doing life. So like we can be unconscious when we get up in the morning and then we go to the bathroom and then we brush our teeth and then like whatever that routine is in the morning, we can do that unconsciously. It does not take effort for us to bring our body through those motions. And so when we act unconsciously, we're really just being who we are without a driver, with the body just being on autopilot. And it's based on who we were the day before, and the day before that, and the day before that. And so what I started to notice was that when I reflected on our arguments and the ways that we didn't match up, I literally saw it as a puzzle piece. And I was like, holy shit. Everything that was my wounds, everything that I did as my bandage, as the way to prevent that wound from being felt again, it's all unconscious. Those characteristics of me and those patterns that I had were the exact match for what he was protecting himself from, and vice versa. So when I looked at this objective reality that I created with my subjective, subconscious mind that was just spitting out whatever it was programmed with from that 0 to 7 and other experiences beyond that. But when I started to see that relationship as a puzzle piece, that my wounds were perfect, but my protections were perfect to trigger his wounds, and his protections of his wounds were perfect to trigger my wounds. Then it was like I started remembering like all these fights, and I could like zigzag with, oh my gosh, I was feeling this. And then I said this, but I didn't mean it in that way. But for him, that's what it felt like. And it was just like ping ponging back and forth, back and forth. And so it was like this unraveling of the cord. A lot of us are familiar with cording, that we have an energetic cord tied to people. And when we try to cut the cord, when we try to break that energetic connection with people, they might come out of the woodwork, right? They can feel our energy pull away from them. And because we are in this really convoluted universe of really weird shit, we even though the shit feels bad, like if it's a bad connection and one person starts to pull away and the other person is like, no, 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 then they call you or they text you or whatever. That's only because who you are is still confirming who their mind thinks it is from that subconscious. So it was like, the more I could see how our wounds were triggering each other and our bandages were acting, then I was like unraveling the cord. And I was able to start to release that relationship and forgive him and forgive myself and then grow from it. Because the things that were going on in that relationship were manifestations, were the objective reality of who I be. And who I was being in that relationship also transferred into how my body was manifesting in its state of health to dis-ease spectrum. And then also how I was treating my body and how I was having self-respect for myself and being in alignment with doing the things that I want to do or not want to do. And there was a lot of things in that relationship that were in the 3D, like it was long distance, just like my marriage was long distance. So like I lived an hour away from where my business was. And so the relationship with the rebound, he was over an hour away. And I don't like distance. I like being home. I'm a hermit. And so for me to be in a long distance relationship or have to drive long distances, that's not something that I want to do. But yet I quote unquote found myself in the same situation. So it was like, how many times do I want to find myself in the same situation that I don't like? What is in me that needs to be released? And seeing that relationship as a puzzle piece of my wounds were perfect. My bandages of my wounds were perfect to trigger his wounds, for then him to act in his bandages towards me, which were the things that would trigger my wounds. So when I started to see it like that, I could release that. And so the point number 3 is that this is really about forgiveness for both players, because the more we can forgive, forgiveness is the letting go of the experience. When we hold on to the experience, it's because our brain is still perceiving that we need to know survival information. And when we're operating in a survival information mode, that means that our brain waves are chaotic. They're not in theta, which is the creative space, the dream state, or the right before the dream state. It's the meditative state. When we're in gathering information to be on the lookout of danger, our nervous system gets shot. We are consistently secreting degenerative molecules of emotion, and we're not coherent with our brain and our heart. We just get slumped back into the unconscious of the reptilian brain of what do I need to do to stay alive? And so when we forgive, we're letting go of the things that have hurt us simply for the energetic state so that we can move forward in our life and start to manifest what we want. Because if we hold on to the pain, then we continue to manifest the feeling of the pain, but in other areas of life. Hence the sabotage with the diet and the food, with the binging, with the punishing ourselves through exercise. And the point number 4 is that we're in the mirrored universe. So what is actually next to be integrated? And this is where we're going to finish this conversation today, that the mirrored universe is that if we go all the way back to the beginning of this conversation, it was that when we are formless, when we don't have the physical body and we are unconditioned consciousness, we are just source energy. There is no differentiation between your energy and my energy because it's the same. We don't have bones and skin separating us. We're just source energy. So the mirrored universe is that when we become formed, when we become manifested, when the soul becomes a human body, like death becomes her, when the soul becomes a human body, is that the right way to say it even? Everything on the outside of the conditioned consciousness is the mirror to what that conditioned consciousness is. So if we have been able to see a soul contract where we had a perfect puzzle piece relationship with someone and we're still angry with them, we're still sad about it, we still feel disempowered, we still find ourselves doing things that when we get into the low state, like maybe after we binged and we start to feel bad that we just did that again, we start to remember the interactions that we had with that person. That's because that memory of the person has the same energetic frequency as what you just did. Feeling bad is feeling bad. And the law in our brain is that nerve cells that fire together wire together. So we just need one feeling in our mind to say, I feel bad, to then have the brain fire all of the neurons, which are memories of times that you felt bad. And so when we have the person come up in our brain, when we feel bad, we know we still haven't let go. And so this mirrored universe says that everything in our objective reality that was projected from the subjective subconsciousness is a way for me to get to know myself. So if we choose to see that as a soul contract, as we choose to release the person, we say they're a human just like me. They're doing fucked up things just like me. When we choose to release the human, when we let the human off the hook, then we get to actually go back to ourselves and see the mirrored universe and say, what in me was reflected in that person? Because you can't have any interaction with anything or anyone unless there is a piece of you that is the same, because that's the law. It's the law of the universe. It's just how it works. So you get to now look, excuse me, I keep burping. You get to now look around your life and be like, well, who am I? Where am I? Who am I?
I found this on the web.
Who do I be? Right? Getting to know yourself, really taking a look at your environment and the patterns that you do and the places that you go to get to know what your vibe is. Do you go to bars or do you go to coffee shops? You know, like stuff like that. Do you go to hot yoga where you're using dumbbells because you want to work harder? Or are you going to more of a spiritual yin yoga where you're holding a split for 10 minutes at a time and breathing? Like, who are you? You get to start looking at the mirrored universe to see, well, where has the energy of this soul contract also shown up in places? Because then you get to start the unraveling process. And this is where we get to make those environmental changes and those habit changes that are going to support the dream body. And I felt so disconnected from my body and from my emotions that when I got upset about something, I would just react. My body would shut down. I would get sick. My neck would go out, or I would overeat, or I would feel the need to exercise even harder. So I was so out of body for so long, for most of my life. And when I did this work from the inside out to actually look at the energy and look at the mental, emotional states and start to identify that I was recreating my reality, I looked around my environment to get to know me because I was so disconnected. And this was a time where I had all of my work supplies in my room. I'm now back to having, this backdrop in my room, but I had this white and gray kitchen cart that had a big Mac computer on it that had all these papers everywhere and Post-its everywhere and had my podcasting boom. And then I had all my beautiful pine furniture and then my beautiful candles and my perfume bottles and all these things. And I started to look around and I'm like, I'm so obsessed with work, and work is the only thing that gives me meaning and validation. I have to remove work out of my living area so that I can get to know me and spend time with me. And these are the things that I tell my clients to do too, because we can't change our body in the same environment that it's in now. There's a tuning out of what the reality is that we want to recreate, right? So like if you're working on being a millionaire in your business and you're not a millionaire and you're living in a place that you don't want to live in, there is a certain amount of tuning out to your senses, confirming that you're not a millionaire. And there's a certain amount of integrating and putting into your environment things that are going to make you feel the feeling of being a millionaire. For me, in this context of overworking and clearing out my environment meant that I had to remove the things that I was using for external validation and then get to know myself and see myself and value myself for me versus what I could produce. So when we're looking at the mirrored universe, it was like, okay, so now I'm going to clear all of the work out of my room. I took a TV out of my room. I just really started watching like a lot of TV again and stuff and Netflix and everything. But for the whole past year, I was watching program videos from Melanie Ann Layer and Stephanie Ann Houston. Like that was my life. YouTube was my life, watching these programs. Side note. So when we are looking at this mirrored universe and we're starting to see, okay, like, how can I integrate these other things? Whatever it is that you found in that soul contract and that forgiveness experience that you're having for yourself and for the other person, what's the flip side? What's the flip side of those mental, emotional states, of those energies that you can start to integrate into your life now that are going to support you going in the direction of your dream body? So that might mean not going to Starbucks as often. It might mean changing what you eat at Starbucks. It might mean going to a different gym, to a different Pilates class. It might mean limiting conversations with people who don't support you. It might mean getting a divorce. Like that's like a reality. Like there are things that you are going to have to face the music with and change in your life that are keeping the old you intact. The world will change around you, but you also have to be a participant in that change. So when you look out there, even if you look at your books, if you look at the colors of your bags, if you look everything, if you look at what's most played on your Spotify list, if you look at the people that you're interacting with on Facebook, that will all tell you what energy it is that's keeping you in place. And then you can start to make those shifts. Because when you start to make those shifts on the inside with the forgiveness and on the outside with changing to what's actually going to support you, then the sabotage is easier to manage. You can literally sense it more, and you can follow through more, because that little voice inside your head that says, I've been doing so good, I deserve to eat this. I've been doing so good, I can splurge a little bit. I've been doing so good, I don't need to go to the gym. When you made a commitment in your head that you were going to go to the gym 3 days a week, and on that third day, you're like, I did great, I don't need to go. That is part of the old you that still has an attachment. So you have to push yourself through to the other side, and you have to recognize when that voice goes off in your head, that's not actually the supportive me. That's not actually the new mental me who is supporting mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual coherency towards my dream body. Bye. You're able to make that shift right there in the moment. And this is like I want to say the secret, like this is what separates people who get it done and who don't. You hear it, you recognize it, that it's false, and you move through it. Whereas when you're still having that attachment, you hear it and you're like, there's more energy I need to clear, or you just believe it and then you hit snooze. So this is one of the ways that I've cleared my energy to allow myself to eat well and exercise in a way that supports my dream body and that has helped me reclaim my health. So that is your podcast episode today. If you want help doing this on a more personal level, you're going to go to the Queen's Gambit. You can go to Body Energetic. Well, first of all, go to bodyenergetics.com, where you can opt into my free 28-day energetic calibration. This is my meditation on YouTube, and you get a hidden YouTube link where only us have access to it. And then for 28 days, I'm going to give you little emails to help you stay focused on why it is that you're doing this. Because meditation, especially in the beginning, is hard because you have to create stimulus within yourself. You cannot use the external world to get your feelings, to get your validation. So meditation is really hard in the beginning. So I'm supporting you for 28 days. There's also a link to Body Energetics, which is my free Facebook group where I do my free master classes that I'm hosting this year, which I'm so excited about. They are free. They're going to be 1 to 3 days long, and you're going to be able to get some even more traction in changing your body. And then the Queen's Gambit, like I said, so back to the Queen's Gambit. This is a 12-month transformation. I have paid in full and I have monthly options. There is a buyer and seller protection agreement that you must sign in order to do it. And this is where you're going to get the hard skills and the soft skills. I'm going to teach you and coach you through what you need to know about diet, exercise, and meditation. And then the soft skills of how you're really going to develop your self-love, your self-respect, your self-loyalty, so that you can become the new person you want to be. And we're going to have trainings. Well, we do have trainings, and you have access to all of my programs. You have access to all of my master classes included in it. So you have so much support. You get hot seat coaching with me every week. You get the diet, exercise, and meditation coaching from me every week. You get all of my content on micro topics throughout the whole year. So in 12 months, we are going to mix up your energy so that you can create a new body, and you will have that transformation in the 12 months and beyond. It's going to be incredible. And you might be thinking, free masterclass is already included, but it's free. So what I'm doing with the free masterclasses is they are going to be free inside the group for a limited amount of time. Then they're going to be pulled from the group to where you can buy it as a self-study course. So you have temporary access to it when it's free. And if you're in the Queen's Gambit, you get the lifetime access to it. So that's the difference there that you'll see with that value. Listen to the end of this podcast, because you're going to hear from the ladies who were in the first Queen's Gambit. I really love their personal shares and how they grew in that experience. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you found it helpful, please share it on social media and tag me at It's Lauren Saracione and at Queen Bold EQ. You can just search my name, Lauren Saracione, on the IG, and you should find both of those handles, no problem. I'm going to leave you with a few little snippets of the ladies who were in the very first Queen's Gambit with me. The Queen's Gambit is my year-long transformation where I give you all the coaching you need for mindset, emotions, habits, diet, exercise, and self-care.
First of all, thank you for just giving of yourself and allowing us to be in this space today. That's been really amazing to just see how much you're giving to us. So thank you for that.
Because I'm not gonna go shame myself anymore. I'm not gonna go fucking judge myself. I'm fucking over it. I'm so fucking done with that old game. It's just an old game. I'm not gonna play anymore.
Adding upper body has actually been really good. I enjoy it because I've always been so scared of it.
The energetic stuff has been really great for me, because I think that's what my soul was craving. I've been wanting to know more, but where do I start? So this has been super great.
New identity, new person, new body.
And it was I could never get past certain plateaus, but this makes so much sense.
Exercises go really well. It's so much fun to have finally a gym.
I remember, because it was so significant to me, that was after COVID. It was really difficult for me to go back because I had gained weight. I felt really heavy after having been lighter, and through COVID and not working out. That day was really nice because you encouraged me to continue. When you told me, you're strong, sweetie, you can go heavy, and I was really? That helped me just kind of develop that confidence.
And I'm well, I'm gonna take responsibility for the mistake, but I'm not gonna shaming or blaming or judging. It's not gonna help me take the responsibility. It just makes it harder. So why the F should I make it hard for yourself? Come on.